ask a question live with the Congresswoman tonight, hit *3. And now I am beyond excited to introduce Congresswoman Dexter.
Thank you, Peter. Good evening, everyone. I'm Congresswoman Maxine Dexter. I am a mom, a physician, and the very proud U.S. Representative for Oregon's 3rd Congressional District. Thank you for joining us tonight for my final telephone town hall of 2025. Wow, this has been a whirlwind year, to say the least. It's truly the honor of a lifetime to represent you through this challenging time. Since coming into office in January, I've kept your voices at the center of everything I do. This is my 30th town hall. I responded to more than 140,000 messages, helped over 700 constituents navigate federal agencies, and returned more than $1 million directly to the people of this district. And as you know, none of that happens without an amazing team, so I am grateful to them. And still, I know this year has also brought profound uncertainty and fear for many of you. Donald Trump returned to power with chaos and cruelty as his governing strategy. He's weaponized the federal government against immigrants and vulnerable communities. He's defied the Constitution, launched unauthorized military attacks, and is enriching himself while everyday Americans struggle to afford health care and food. These are not normal times, and they demand clarity, courage, and compassion. I know how easy it is to feel hopeless in the face of all of this, and yet I fervently believe in us because I have seen the resilience of people through the hardest times in their lives. I've sat with patients and families for 20 years through challenging, devastating, unexpected moments. And what I've witnessed has affirmed my faith in our shared humanity, our commitment to community, and our ability to come through the hardest challenges imaginable, stronger and more united. As many of you know, I grew up in a working class family. I left home at 17 and was first in my family to graduate college, let alone medical school. And it was because of strong public schools, a union job, affordable higher ed, that I could chart a new path. And that is the promise of this country, and that promise is slipping away. Too many people today are working harder than ever and falling further behind. And it's not because they've done anything wrong, it's because the system has been rigged against them by the wealthy and well-connected. And that's why nights like this matter. When we come together to share our stories, to ask hard questions, and to dream bigger about what's possible. I'm in Congress to fight for what matters to you: affordable health care, safe communities, climate action, housing affordability, reproductive freedom, and an economy that actually works for working families. I will continue to hold the line against extremism because we cannot allow fascism to take root in this country. Not now, not ever. So let's meet this moment with grit and grace, not because the path forward is easy, but because we must. Let's reject division and despair and instead move forward with purpose, compassion, and unshakable resolve. Thank you again for being here. I'm so excited for your questions in this conversation. As you've heard, I hope, to ask me something live, press *3. If you'd like to subscribe to my newsletter, press *6, and a member of our team will take down your email. And again, to ask a question, please press *3.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Now, before we get underway, I want to introduce a fantastic member of Congresswoman Dexter's casework team, Jeff. Our caseworkers are bilingual, and we offer translated materials if you're having trouble with a federal agency, including immigration-related matters, or during our government is here to help.
Si desea un resumen de esta reunión, hacer una pregunta o necesita ayuda con una agencia federal, por favor llámenos al 503-231-2300 o en línea en dexter.house.gov. Gracias por estar aquí esta noche. Esperamos responder a sus preguntas.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Now on to our questions. Our first question is from online from Jeff, who asks, what is happening on healthcare? Is the House going to vote?
Thank you, Jeff. So absolutely, I hope so. And that is a ridiculous statement considering that we have been focused really clearly on the need to extend the ACA enhanced premium tax credits. We are looking at families across this nation losing their ability to pay for health care at the end of this month. And so it is without a doubt something that I absolutely intend to continue to push this week, and there are many different pathways, but there is no clear plan, and that honestly is something that is both frustrating and unsurprising based on the Republican sort of discourse and possibly lack of clarity from their conference on where they want to head. So there's multiple plans. We are here this week in no small part to get something done. And I am committed to elevating not just the need for enhanced premium tax credits. That is a first step, and it is an important first step. But we need to get transformative health care to become a reality. And that's not going to happen this week, but it is something that my team and many of us here are really focused on. So we need to reimagine a system that centers people, not corporate profits and insurance companies, but we first have to make sure people can keep their insurance. And that is absolutely pivotal this week.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. And as a reminder, you can press *3 to ask a question to Congresswoman Dexter. Now we have Diana, and Diana, you are live with the Congresswoman.
Hi there, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, good. I've had some tech issues in town meetings before. So I kind of had two big questions for you, and it seems like you have addressed in great part the healthcare question that I have as a person whose healthcare is jumping to $2,200 a month to be able to afford just to see the specialist I need with my marketplace plan for a chronic disabling health condition. But it sounds like you are doing some really solid work on that. So I think I'm going to move to the other and frankly more pressing priority on my question list, which is that shortly before Thanksgiving, our friend who we got to know because he has been doing landscaping work for us for well over a year, who's the kindest, gentlest person, who has no criminal record, who has no history of violence, and who I feel completely safe having in my home, which as a person who's recovering from trauma relating to men, me feeling comfortable about a man and my property and in my space says an enormous amount about how gentle and safe this person is. He was kidnapped by ICE shortly before Thanksgiving, and he is still being held at a detention center in Tacoma. I went with the family as a support person to his bond hearing, and while his bond was not approved, he is currently being encouraged to proceed with asylum paperwork. But you know, these folks in these systems are largely invisible unless we make it so that people pay attention. And I am extending a direct request to you to help my friend who is a business owner, who pays his taxes, who is a community member, and who is unjustly kidnapped by ICE, who is being held hostage by ICE. I refuse to use the word detained. I refuse to use the word in detention. He was kidnapped and he is being held hostage. And I was sitting there in his bond hearing as his wife shook and cried and wept, and as his brother tried to hold it together when he spoke to him in visitation, and none of this is right. So I am asking you, what can I do? How can I work with the family to bring them to your office in Salem and work on a plan for helping this man to get back to the only community he has ever known in the United States, where he is contributing more than most tax-paying Americans who were born here. And every single tax-paying American could learn a thing or two about what it is to be a good person and a hard worker from him.
Great. Thank you, Diana. And first, I absolutely can hear not just the passion in your voice, but the distress. And I am so sorry that he is going through this. And this is happening, as you know, across our community. We know that there is increased ICE activity in Portland and in Oregon writ large. So the first thing I want all our listeners to hear is and I am going to address your direct question and request, but if you see ICE in your neighborhood and you see it with your own eyes, please report to the PERC hotline. And I'm going to give this number now and we'll repeat it probably later, but it's 1-888-622-1510. And PERC is extremely practiced at getting information and mobilizing volunteers. And that's another Migra Watch and other ways to volunteer with PERC are really important for keeping our community safe and making sure that we are documenting things when people are being kidnapped out of our communities. Now for people who've been detained, like your friend, your colleague, who need assistance with their case, we absolutely can help. We have our caseworkers and our team at large are very connected to not just how we personally can help, and I have gone, as many people know, to the Northwest Detention Facility, to the Border Protection Facility up in Customs and Border Protection up in Ferndale, and I mean, we went to El Salvador. So we are willing to do whatever we can, and what we know is when people are being held illegally and light is shed on that, oftentimes we can help facilitate people being released. It sounds like if there was a bond hearing that this may be more complicated, and if there's an asylum case for this man that's possible, he needs a lawyer. Our team is not able to represent. We can advocate, but we can help connect to legal resources. So I would say the most important thing is for him to be connected with our team, and it would probably be a family member. But if they call 503-231-2300, that is our office, and we will, case by case for whomever needs help, call us. And if they are not our constituent, we will connect them directly to the appropriate congressional office. We are all doing casework, and so you don't have to figure out whose representative it is, just call and we'll figure that out. And the other thing I want to just appreciate is how important it is that you are advocating in this way. The sternness of your request is really important. It puts me and everyone in the appropriate place of being the advocate for our residents who need our help. And so we will advocate, we will help in every way possible. And it is a time where each and every one of us needs to be leaning in whatever way we can. So thank you, Diana, for being such an incredibly staunch friend and community member. And I hope that all of us would behave in the same way.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Now, before we head to our next caller, again, just a plug for those just joining us, you can dial *3 to ask a question. Now, up next, we have Leon from Portland. Leon, you are live with the Congresswoman.
Yeah, hi there. Thank you for taking my call. I've never done anything like this before. I appreciate what you've been talking about so far. It's hard to pick just one issue to ask about when there's so many pressing things, but I guess I haven't heard your stance or heard much conversation in general among my representatives about the escalation of militarism kind of south, in our neighboring countries to the south, both the murder of whoever are on these boats in the Caribbean and in the Pacific, and the escalating rhetoric kind of bending towards regime change in places like Venezuela and Honduras. I'm very concerned about this, and it seems like some people on the Democratic side even aren't speaking up because maybe they are tacitly consenting to a regime change operation in Venezuela. And I just want to hear what you where you are. What's your position on that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you, Leon, and I really appreciate this. It has been very much on many of our minds, and as you said, there are so many things to be advocating for or against that it's really hard for all of the things that people want to hear about to get through. So thank you for asking the question. The first thing that I'd say is that our president and Pete Hegseth are behaving in a very illegal way. These strikes and hostilities in the South Caribbean are reckless and are probably not unintentionally moving us toward a needless war. We need to assert our rights and our Article 1 duty as the body that can declare war to reassert ourselves. And so I have signed on to 3 different war power resolutions that would require the U.S. to halt hostilities against Venezuela and any transnational criminal organizations designated as foreign terrorist organizations or specially designated global terrorists. These are ways that they are getting around declaring war. So we are absolutely trying to reassert that Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth can't just go illegally attack and murder people in the South Caribbean or anywhere else. And to the point that you're making, we are also openly undermining, or I would say they are openly undermining the Maduro government. And, whether or not we support Maduro, piracy and open hostilities and murder are not how international diplomacy is implemented. And so we are not just asserting ourselves here, we are absolutely working with our colleagues across the aisle who also are very disturbed by this. So I would say there's bipartisan collaboration happening on this front, and I have supported also multiple amicus briefs fighting against the administration revoking TPS or temporary protected status from Venezuelans, which is also, I think, part of this. So thank you for raising this. It is very much on my mind. It is extraordinarily dangerous, and it is something that there's a bipartisan group of us here in Congress really fighting back against.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Up next, we have Rita from Portland. Rita, you are live with the Congresswoman.
Oh, hi. I'm wondering about what's happening with the VA and what issues are you working on? That's it.
Okay. Thank you, Rita. So as a lot of people know, I trained at the VA. I took care of veterans for 8 years. I never took care of a Democrat or a Republican veteran. I just took care of veterans, and I am serving on the Veterans Affairs Committee, and I am extremely dedicated to fighting for their right, all veterans, our women, our trans, our immigrant veterans, as well as every veteran who has been extended increased disability and access through PACT Act investments. We need to make sure that they have access to the health care that they have earned and that is our due for them putting their lives on the line literally for our country. It is extremely distressing to hear just today that potentially as many as 30,000 healthcare workers are going to be fired from the VA. We are rallying to write a letter and try to question the secretary about this. Personally, I passed my first bill, which was for veterans. It was the FAST Vets Act, which helps streamline veteran readiness and employment to help them get moved into employment opportunities more quickly. We are working to find a Republican partner for the Every Veteran Housed Act to help remove barriers and streamline folks getting into homes, home ownership, and out of homelessness for some veterans. We have a goal of no veteran in our state being unhoused, and we need to really do more sort of work in that regard. And then I worked with several of the physicians here in Congress who are also on the committee condemning the culture of censorship and intimidation that's been reported under Trump at the VA. We are hearing about retaliation concerns and other things from Veteran Affairs employees speaking up. So the last thing I would just say is that there have been direct attacks on trans and abortion access care, gender-affirming care and abortion care in the VA, and we are absolutely fighting against that. Every veteran should have access to the full spectrum of health care that they need. That is not for politicians to decide. It is a physician and their patient's role to decide, and we absolutely are going to fight for every veteran to have the same access to full spectrum care that anyone else would expect. So it's a tough time for our VA. There's underinvestment and extending privatization that I think is undermining its ability to really do its work in the healthcare space. But this goes across so many spaces right now, and it is egregious that my Republican colleagues are not standing up for veterans right now, and I will continue to push for that.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Up next, we have Linda. Linda, you are live with the Congresswoman.
Hello, Maxine Dexter. This is Linda Measy. Given the fact that affordability is on the minds of most of us, I'm just wondering why there hasn't been more talk about raising the minimum wage. It hasn't been raised since 2009, and it's still stuck at $7.25 an hour. And I just think that would do something to help the middle class if we could just raise that up.
Yeah, thank you, Linda, so much for calling in and for your question. It just mind-boggling to me that is still the minimum wage. It is absolutely far past overdue, and I know that this has been one of the issues that keeps getting raised by my Democrat colleagues is one of the things that we really should talk about, if we are given the chance to be in the majority. It shouldn't just be about wages, obviously. We need to have an economy that works for everyone, that we have affordable education and housing and all the things, but you can't pay for any of that on $7.25 an hour. So it is a no-brainer in my mind that we need to raise the minimum wage. Some cities and states obviously have already done that across the country, but the fact that some parts of our nation actually still are following this and can't seem to get momentum to just give people a living wage is really egregious. So it is far past time. I give you my word that I will fight to increase the federal minimum wage, and we are going to have to most likely wait at least another year for that to become reality, but I appreciate you raising it, and it's important that people across our community continue to elevate the need for better wages at the federal level.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Now up next, we have Michael from Portland. Michael, you are live with the Congresswoman.
Thank you so much. First of all, I just want to thank you and your team for doing this at Town Hall. I think it's great to talk to constituents and understand what the issues are. A lot of great questions so far. I think my biggest concern, and I know that I've heard this from a lot of my friends, is it seems like the system is under attack, right? Like we're all like, hey, let's put our faith in the system. Everything's going to work itself out. There's laws, everything. It seems like, I don't know, Teflon Don, just nothing seems to stick. He's just doing all this crazy stuff. But my biggest concern is coming up in the midterms, because there's rumors that he's going to declare war on Venezuela. He's going to have a state of emergency. They're just going to stop elections, or they're going to put the military in, just all the craziness that's going on. So I just wanted to kind of twofold. A, what can we do about that? And B, is there anything that Oregon can do to throw our hat into the redistricting arena? Just understanding that a lot of seats are up for grabs, it seems.
Yeah, thank you so much. It is an incredibly important question, Michael. The truth is that the next election is the most important one in authoritarian, autocratic sort of regime momentum changing event. Like, the election can either solidify their move towards autocracy or authoritarianism, or it can stop it or really put a halt on it. And we have to do everything we can to protect our election and the ability to have a fair and safe election. That in Oregon, luckily, is much more straightforward because we still have voting at home, and we need the Supreme Court not to put that at risk, which is one threat. But voting at home means that people don't have to deal with random changes of their voting place, or that they can't be intimidated by the National Guard or military-looking folks or federal officers at the voting booths, or that they can't be told that they need ID that doesn't exist, or other, challenges that people certainly have seen over time in this country. So voting at home is hard to intimidate and undermine. We also have a paper ballot that can be checked, and it's extremely hard to tamper with. So in Oregon, at least, we have a really solid footing, as well as an incredible Secretary of State who's really dedicated to making sure that our election is executed beyond reproach. That cannot be said in every state, unfortunately, and states do have jurisdiction for running these elections, at least as of now. Hopefully, our Supreme Court won't undermine that. You also asked about Oregon and redistricting. The redistricting movement that the Trump administration and Republicans have kind of been complicit with is really interesting because it may, end up backfiring to a certain degree. I think that it is egregious that they started this. I think it's really been something that even Republicans just recently in Indiana have rejected, despite a lot of intimidation and strong imploring from the administration. So, and we know that we are seeing voters turn out in unexpectedly high numbers for Democratic candidates. So they may find that they've overplayed their hand and may lose seats or even not get as many as they expect, based on building a lot of swing districts that may be overestimating the voter turnout that they can expect for Republicans. So that is all a lot of conjecture. What we really need to do is do the right thing. The right thing is not to change and gerrymander maps, but because the Republicans have started that, Democrats, maybe unexpectedly, have risen to the gerrymandering movement counter, certainly in California. And I do believe that at least for the short term, that is not unreasonable. I hope that we don't move on to a gerrymandering back and forth pendulum. From here, we need to establish stability after this next election, I hope. But that is, we need to get through this first thing first. I don't know if there's anything else I would say about that. The militarization of our communities is a big concern for me, and certainly in Oregon, having the National Guard threat brought that really forward to top of mind. And I think that the courts are playing that out. And then the very last thing I would say is, even if we have a free and fair election and those are not debated, there are other things that they can do, as you said, declaring war, having a state of emergency. The speaker could refuse to seat a Democrat majority. There are many things yet to come. So we just need people to stay engaged, to stay focused on what's legal and what's not, and make sure that your voices are heard.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Now, taking a little break for questions for our first poll of the evening. At the end of the year, the enhanced ACA premium tax credits are set to expire, and Congresswoman Dexter, as we've already heard, has been hearing from families who are seeing their monthly premiums skyrocket. Now, as Congresswoman Dexter works to prevent higher costs, what approach would you prefer? Press 1 if you think Congress should focus on permanently extending ACA premium tax credits. Press 2 if you think Congress should focus on short-term extensions that allow Congress to revisit the policy later. Press 3 if you think Congress should focus on putting payments into health savings accounts for those on qualifying plans. And press 4 if you think Congress should focus on other healthcare reforms instead. Now, again, press 1 if you think Congress should focus on long-term certainty by permanently extending ACA premiums tax credits. Press 2 if you think Congress should focus on short-term extensions that allow Congress to revisit this policy later. Press 3 if you think Congress should focus on putting payments into health savings accounts for those on qualifying plans. And press 4 if you think Congress should focus on other healthcare reforms instead. And I will, again, make a plug for our translated services and our fantastic casework team.
Hola nuevamente. Si desea un resumen de esta reunión, hacer una pregunta o necesita ayuda con una agencia federal, por favor llámenos al 503-231-2300 o en línea en dexter.house.gov. Gracias por estar aquí esta noche y esperamos responder a sus preguntas.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jeff. And thank you all for the folks who are participating in the poll. I know folks like to hear. We are up to a total of 16,000 plus, almost 16,500 total people on the line or streaming on it's about 16,500. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us tonight. So we have approximately 55% of all people responding saying that option 1, permanently extending the ACA premium tax credits, is what they'd like to see, followed closely by, or actually not so closely, followed by option 2, which is short-term extensions and then revisit the policy. Health savings accounts are not very heavily supported, with only 4% supporting that, and then 12%, or just changed to 11%, prefer focusing on other healthcare reforms. So clearly the ACA premium tax credits are top of mind for many folks right now, and folks really do understand the importance of them for making healthcare affordable. I will just say that I do think transformative change is necessary. So my hope, certainly what I'm advocating for, is at least 2, but preferably 3 years of extensions. And then we need to get some real transformative healthcare policy passed so that we can secure affordable healthcare for everyone, and not helping insurance companies take more money to their shareholders.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman, and thank you, Jeff. Now our next question is from Tom from Portland. Tom, you are live with the Congresswoman.
Hello. My question centers around public land and the protection. Public land in Oregon and all of Western United States should be a bipartisan issue as far as protecting it. Its forests are able to be used for extraction of minerals and timber, yet there's certain rules historically in place to make that go through a proper process of checks and balances. Layered on top of that, outdoor recreation uses public land quite a bit. What I see happening is both erosion on the protection of land, such as national monuments and parks and that type of stuff, through both legislation and lack of funding. And then you go to the Forest Service and you're seeing that same thing. So the erosion of following proper rules to, use the land as a business owner. This should be a really strong bipartisan issue. And I'm just wondering where you fall on this issue and what steps you're taking to protect this great national resource.
Thank you so much, Tom, and I couldn't agree with you more. This absolutely, it doesn't just suffice it to say that it should be a bipartisan issue. It is a bipartisan issue. We know that when there were threats to our public lands earlier this year. The movement came from all sides, really progressive environmentalists and hunters, fishermen, and folks who just don't want private interests to own the land that is a gift to our future children. So this is, without a question, a bipartisan issue. The issue, the challenge right now is that there is a desire to use the land for personal or private interests. And so that is whether it's selling the land, whether it's allowing large mining companies or oil companies to be able to purchase things at a bargain basement price to hold on to for later in case they decide that they want to, take the resources that belong to the people. We've seen decreases in royalties to the public and increased profits going to these companies with our Republicans in the lead right now. I would just say that this energy emergency or crisis is a farce. We are still producing more oil than we ever have. And the incredibly frustrating thing for me is to watch us giving in to the president's hatred of renewable energy. The Republicans really are doing themselves and their communities a disservice where solar projects and wind projects and billions of dollars have gone into these projects are being rolled back. So the federal lands are a priority for the people, and the people need to continue to speak up because they are being given away or sold at the lowest price to folks who do not care for the interest of the people as much as their own self-interest. And I sit on the Natural Resources Committee right now. We are seeing permitting reforms that should also be a bipartisan issue. We do need to have more efficient permitting processes, but we need to follow the regulations and enforce the laws that we have. And part of what is happening is the funds for staff have been cut dramatically, and so an underfunded staff are being expected to implement and enforce laws that are changing under the Republican leadership right now. And what we will see is that there will continue to be an erosion in the public's interest in these lands. So thank you for raising this up. I think no matter who, what side of the spectrum you are on, we should all care about protecting these lands for our future generations. And I suspect there will be some reverberations and harm that's going to be done as a result of some of the policies that the Republicans are pushing right now. And I very much intend to investigate that as the ranking member of the Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee on Natural Resources. So if folks are hearing or seeing things on federal lands that concern them, please write my office, dexter.house.gov. We are always interested in specific cases of infractions and violations because it is an opportunity that I will have should we win a majority to be a chair of the subcommittee that does oversight in this area.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Now, up next, we have Stephen from Portland. Stephen, you are live with the Congresswoman.
Great. Greetings, Congresswoman. I am a fellow. Hi, how are you doing? First of all, I want to say that I've been duking it out with some folks online, asking them to, instead of pillorying our leadership, to come to one of these town hall meetings and listen to your concern and how you are really trying to make a difference for them, too. As a fellow physician, I have been in practice for 40 years, and I cannot remember a single child being disabled or dying from a preventable illness. Every day I am, and fortunately I'm not on any medication yet, but every day my blood pressure goes up listening to the things that are happening in the Health and Human Services and the kind of puppet group of, quote, experts that we now have in Washington running our CDC and some of the others. And the other concern is reaching down into those healthcare leaders and taking out people who have years of experience and are really going to be irreplaceable once they are, fired or retired. So I wanted to know if you have a specific strategy for approaching that, and I appreciate your efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Stephen, and thank you for your service to our community for 40 years. That's a remarkable legacy. The first thing I'd say is that the attack on science is longstanding, clearly intentional, and it is something that I will fight every step of the way. And I'm a founding member of the Democratic Doctors Caucus, where we have really started coming together and making joint statements and taking positions in as firm a way as we can to stand up not just for public health and science, but also the importance of the protection of physician-patient relationships and that trust. We know that when a physician that is trusted talks with a patient about vaccines and preventative care, that they are much more likely to follow the guidelines of somebody they trust than a new or covering doctor. So we need a system that actually preserves that relationship and allows you as a physician to see your patient panel and gives patients access to a reliable caregiver. That is important to me from the patient advocate side. From the science advocacy side, the undermining of NIH funding and high quality investigation is really concerning to me. There are reports that there are grants being given to pseudoscientists or those who are under or seeking to reinforce erroneous and misleading assertions that are RFK Jr., the Secretary of Health and Human Services right now, is asserting. We know that there is disinformation and frank fabrication that is happening right now, and it is egregious. The CDC has been undermined. The preventative task force may also be challenged. This is a full-on assault of science and the integrity of medicine and the professional autonomy that our investigators and physicians and clinicians across this country should have. Public health investment also has been dramatically undermined. So the first priority for me is doing everything I can to get RFK Jr. out of the seat. We have been calling for his resignation. We have absolutely been fighting his attack on science and scientists and physicians. Next, we need to get a public health system that actually is funded and is able to get information that's reliable out to the community. That has been undermined dramatically. And then, in the meantime, while we are fighting federal leadership that is really against the interests of people, things like the West Coast Health Alliance and other interval steps, I think, are really important because right now, frankly, the information on the CDC website is not reliable for many folks. I certainly would not rely on it myself. And I think we need to have trusted sources. So physician specialty groups, the infectious disease and pediatrics groups and chest physicians and others are all trying to get reliable information out there. But this is a scary time. And as you said, I've seen post-polio syndrome, but I've certainly never seen an active case of polio, and I don't want to. Measles and the morbidity and mortality that is so preventable is now surging in multiple areas across our nation. This is absolutely a crisis of public health, and I cannot overstate enough how important it is that people have access to reliable information and not gaslighting and personal vendettas that leadership has continued to elevate. It is tragic, and we are doing everything we can to fight against it. So thank you, Stephen.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Up next, we have Patty. Patty, you are live with the Congresswoman.
Hi, good evening. So I have a question. with the president becoming more unhinged in his social media posts, and I'm referring specifically to one that really kind of got people's attention was this morning he posted something about Rob Reiner, the great director and actor, his family, his and his wife's murder, just some unhinged rant that their death was caused by Trump derangement syndrome and all of that. And there were a lot of people in the majority party who were calling him out and saying, hey, this was not appropriate. Well, they do that. They say that. But is there really an appetite for the majority party to hold this president accountable for the vicious attacks and just the unhinged things that he says on social media and in public, to actually hold him accountable for that?
Yeah, Patty, thank you so much. I can't agree with you more. It is unhinged. It is such a surreal reality that we have the leader of the most lauded democracy in the world to be saying such erroneous things. So it is not clear to me that my Republican colleagues have found their courage yet. Courage is probably the most important currency right now in leadership, and it is coming in shorter supply than any of us would like. But there are, I think some early, I don't know, is it fracturing? Is it breaking from the party? I think folks are becoming a little bit more courageous speaking out against the president. I certainly am seeing my colleagues calling things out individually more readily on specific incidences or statements more than they ever did at the beginning of this year. So I hope that courage is growing and is becoming contagious in the Republican Party. But my heart has been broken by the Republican colleagues over and over again. So I'm not eternally, or I'll always have hope, but I'm not optimistic at this moment that that's going to happen soon. I do think voters are holding Republicans accountable, whether it is declaring, that we need to not be taking illegal action, murdering people in the South Caribbean, or that the ACA enhanced tax credits are something they really need their Republican representatives to stand up for. I do think we are seeing the public pressure start to erode the support that the president has had out of hand and wholly throughout the Republican Party. And so keep it up. I think calling for truth and calling for justice and calling for the rule of law should not be contradictory to the goals of this nation. And, I will also share that the fact that my colleagues in the House and in the Senate who were telling our military officers that they should not take or fulfill illegal orders, that was called out as a criminal act by our president, really did create some consternation amongst some of my Republican colleagues. Like, that is just a statement of fact. So he is becoming more unhinged, and I think as that happens, people are finding their courage to stand up against him. So keep sharing your thoughts, and please keep sharing your dissatisfaction with their lack of courage, and hopefully we'll see more of it.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. And I will remind folks to subscribe to the Congresswoman's newsletter by pressing *6, and a member of her team will take down your email. You can also subscribe directly from her website, dexter.house.gov. And our next question is from Beth. Beth, you are live with the Congresswoman.
Hello, Congresswoman. My question is about data centers. Can anything be done about them nationally? Because they barely pay any taxes. They don't contribute to their communities. They seem to answer to no one. They have AI employees. They cause cancer with their polluted water and air that they cause. And because skyrocketing rates for ratepayers for electricity, I mean, if they want all this crap, why don't they pay for it themselves? I'm sick of this.
Thank you, Beth. And I hear your frustration and anger, and I know that many folks who have reached out to me share your perspective there. We are absolutely keeping this front and center. It has been the topic of a lot of discussion in the Natural Resources Committee and across Congress, quite frankly. And one win that I want to share is that we passed an amendment on the House floor as part of the energy and water funding bill that my office, that I successfully put on the floor to make sure that the federal government has the tools that it needs to address data centers and the straining of our water resources, that we have the ability to make sure that they are accountable for taking and leaching the water that our communities need. The issues that you express are incredible. You know, we are not talking about acres that these data centers are taking up, but some of them span miles. We know that there's egregious amounts of energy that are being used. Some of them use as much as a small city, not just small towns. And so where the data centers are puts an enormous strain on the electricity capacity for that region. And that is something that, you know, transmission lines and renewable energy investments cannot make up fast enough for these communities. And so it is leading to a shortage of energy. And for some data centers, how they fix that is they just buy diesel, and they have diesel generators running all the time, and that is absolutely causing enormous public health impacts with particulate matter and pollution. And in others, they, you know, take all the energy they want, and it leaves less for everyone else, and brownouts and even blackouts are something that some communities may be looking at if this is not addressed effectively. So we know that Republicans and Democrats alike are thinking about this. I think the reality is that this is burgeoning faster than we are really going to understand the impacts, and so we have to have tools for holding these data centers accountable. And I'll just call out my colleagues in Oregon's House. They have increased accountability for data centers and having to pay additional rates and making up the difference so that the cost of energy is not just borne by consumers, you know, in single family homes or in individual units, but that they will pay higher rates to try to proportionally offset their impact on the grid. But there's a lot more that needs to be done, and I appreciate you elevating it.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. And our final question of the evening will be from Sharon. And Sharon, you are live with the Congresswoman.
Thank you. I appreciate your town hall meetings. They're really wonderful, and they really help with this confusing time. My question is, what's being done on the federal level, and if it seems like there's any real ability to take legal action against ICE's illegal actions, to hold them responsible and accountable for breaking the law that they do all the time. We've heard so many reports of people being basically kidnapped and, terrible, obviously illegal behavior that they are doing as part of their actions. So I just wanted to know what's happening. I know some states are looking into taking legal action, and I just want to know what's happening here and at the federal level.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sharon. It's a really important question, and it is distressing to everyone, or at least everyone that I'm hearing from, to see ICE agents or federal agents breaking windows, attacking, throwing people to the ground, not knowing their status, not caring if they have a judge-signed warrant. There is activity happening across our communities. Our community members are being kidnapped. They are being disappeared, and it is illegal. It is undermining due process. It is undermining civil rights, and so we all should be speaking up and standing up against this. The first thing is that the amount of accountability right now is virtually zero. I think that some cities are trying to assert that their local law enforcement can and should intervene, and there have been a couple incidences of that, and we will see what happens when the federal government challenges those actions in court, because the supremacy clause of the federal law suggests that if they can assert that they are enforcing federal law, that they are protected. And the problem is that the federal law or the orders that they are theoretically following are executive orders that are illegal and are counter to the Constitution. So this is a true constitutional crisis, because our Supreme Court has been deferential to the executive, and I think this is really a huge challenge for us, because where do individual rights versus executive branch authority overlap, and who wins? In that, though, it is incredibly important that people bear witness, whether it is standing up for our neighbors. It is an act of courage right now, because we know that our enforcement agents are not afraid to attack or detain or kidnap citizens and anyone in particular who has the courage to stand up. So we all need to make our own decisions, but I certainly think I admire and certainly applaud the folks who are doing that. I would like to think that I would do it as well. But the other thing we can do is know our rights, stand up for our rights, exert our rights, express our rights, and get it all on video. Continuous video taping, there is absolutely nothing against that, as long as you are not interfering with the detaining or the enforcement of federal law. If you are standing back and you are not intervening, you have the right to record. If somebody takes you into custody, you do not have to say anything, you do not have to sign anything, and you certainly can continue to ask if you are free to go. And we know that they are not following the law. So rights don't mean much if the people who are supposed to protect us are actually infringing upon those rights. I am here in Congress to fight for your rights to be fulfilled, and I think each and every one of us needs to stand up, because right now what is happening to Black and brown people in our communities preferentially could happen to anybody. We all need to stand up. When one person's rights are eliminated, all of our rights are eliminated. And so thank you for asking, and certainly I look forward to working with everyone in this district to protect your rights and everyone's.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Now, before we wrap up, we have another poll question. At every telephone town hall, Congresswoman Dexter asks, what's the number one issue you want her to focus on in Washington, D.C.? We know that there is so much going on, but if you have to pick one issue, what's the issue that matters most to you? You can respond right now using the keypad on your phone. Press 1 for healthcare, 2 for the economy, 3 for immigration, 4 for protecting democracy, 5 for housing, and 6 for something else. And while we wait for responses to come in, a quick reminder, if you ever need help with a federal agency, please call our office at 503-231-2300. Our caseworkers are bilingual, and we can provide translated materials to make sure you get the assistance you need. I will now pass it to Congresswoman Dexter.
Thank you, Peter. And I actually am going to just give those options again, because I think sometimes people can't remember which number goes with things. So press 1 for healthcare, 2 for the economy, 3 for immigration, 4 for protecting democracy, 5 for housing, and 6 for something else. And I'm looking at the responses here. This is a question that we ask at every town hall, and every single time we've had the same answer, and I'm waiting to make sure, but it looks like once again we have the same answer, and no matter where we put it, democracy continues to be the top issue for people on our telephone town halls. So tonight, 68% of folks responding are saying democracy, and it's been as high as I think 88% or in the high 80s So it's still very much top of mind. The next one is tied, healthcare and immigration. And I think this is the first time that immigration has been number 2 for us. So it is reflective of what people are experiencing in our communities. And unfortunately, the reality is that many more of us are seeing the impact of immigration enforcement and the cruelty that this administration is using. We are living through a time when our democratic institutions are unfortunately under relentless attack. Court orders are ignored, our federal agencies are being weaponized, and too many of my Republican colleagues, as we talked about, remain silent. They're choosing power over principle and fear over service. So House Democrats spent the year pushing for action to lower healthcare costs and tackle the cost of living, to protect our environment, defend reproductive rights, and ensure that government works for the people. And time and again, those efforts have been blocked by, frankly, extremists who are more interested in rubber stamping the Trump agenda and in chaos than in solutions. So let me be clear. You all have spoken to it tonight. You are calling it out. We know what the stakes are. We see the harm being done to our communities, and we are not going to back down. We are not powerless in this moment. We are organized, we are clear-eyed, and we are committed to building a future that rewards and reflects our values. A future where healthcare is affordable and accessible should not be a pipe dream or a fantasy. Where families don't have to choose between rent and prescriptions, this should not be a decision people are making. Where immigrants are welcomed and are not targeted, and where our democracy belongs to the people, not to corporations, billionaires, or authoritarian interests. So as we close out the year, I just have to thank you. Thank you for staying engaged, for showing up, for refusing to look away from all of this. This is my last town hall of the year, and I'm so grateful to each of you who have joined me now for 30 town halls that I've hosted, and over 16,000 people who joined us tonight. You've asked tough questions, and you remind me what this work is really about. It's about you. I'm honored to serve Oregon's 3rd Congressional District. I carry your voices with me wherever I go every single day, and I am so honored to serve you. If you haven't already, please head to dexter.house.gov to sign up for our newsletter. You can follow me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, X, Blue Sky, and YouTube. It's an important way to communicate. And let's stay connected. Let's keep showing up for each other. Look out for one another. Take care of yourselves, and have a great night and a warm holiday season.